You've spent days, weeks, maybe even months building your campaign world. You've got villages, towns, cities, kingdoms, backstories, histories, wars, fabled items to find, quests, all of this stuff, special monsters even. But how do you convey that information to your players? Let's talk about it. So you've got this elaborate campaign world, and your players are there in it, and their characters are part of your campaign world. Were born there, they live there. There's stuff that your characters will know. But how do you give them that information? Do you send out a document to your players beforehand, like during session 0 with, hey, this is the stuff you would know? That's one way you could do it. It's kind of boring, though, I think. You could info dump in-game and just read off pages and pages and pages of stuff if you want to put your players to sleep. There might be 1, 2 who would pay attention, but for the most part, people would get bored with that. So how do you do this? Well, one way to do it is to make it fun, make it interesting. Well, in your first couple of sessions, you can convey all of that information from your players talking to NPCs. Have each NPC give just a little bit of lore. Not a lot, but enough in conversation. Make it natural. Make it seem organic. You're going to be giving your players the information that their characters would have anyway, but you're doing it in the storytelling way where you are having a conversation with the characters. Your NPC is having a conversation with the characters, and your players are now learning this information, stuff that the characters would already know. One way that I did it in my most recent homebrewed campaign, right at the beginning of session 1, I did read off paragraphs to the players, but I made it interesting by using a vehicle to convey that information. What I did was I had a crow. His name was Bartleby. Bartleby the crow. And Bartleby was flying around. And each little area he went to, as he approached the character, and this was also the way that I introduced the characters to each other to get the game started. As Bartleby flew around the outskirts of the town and eventually into the town, in each spot that he stopped at a spot where one of the players was. And now that created a role-play opportunity for that player to introduce themselves, for them to talk to some NPCs, and even for Bartleby to have some thoughts on his own as he was flying around. Thoughts about stuff that's local to the town, local legends, things like that. But I also did it in a way where, if you've ever read like older books where animals think like humans, but then the author lets you know that, but he really didn't understand what the sign says. The author's like, this is what the sign says, but since blah fox couldn't actually read, he didn't know it said that, but now the players know that it said that. So I used that kind of whimsical device to help convey some of the information to the players. And in each spot that Bartleby stopped, and we got to interact with one of the players, and eventually by the time Bartleby got to the last player, everybody was in town, they were all together at the festival, and then I just had a big roleplay thing, and that is where I introduced the information they were going to need specific to that particular session and the few sessions coming up. So they got that info dump of history and lore and knowledge that their characters would already have through that storytelling vehicle of a third-party character flying around and just kind of briefly saying things. Now, again, I'm talking like a paragraph or two, not a whole lot, very brief, just enough so that the players knew this is what my characters already know, but also to drop clues for things that they might check out in the future. How do you learn stuff like this? My advice would be, And I've been writing fiction for a long time, so I've just absorbed a lot of information over decades. But my advice to you would be pay attention to how TV shows and movies do this. Not so much books, because books is just pages of info dump anyway. That's what you expect from a book. But if you're watching a visual media, I always equate playing D&D to visual media, like TV and movies, because you are basically telling, in my opinion, each session, you're telling an episodic story. Each session is an episode of a show. That's how I always view it. So if you pay attention to TVs and movies to see how good ones info dump and give you, the watcher, the information you need to understand what's going on in that show, those are the types of tricks that you can use as a DM in your D&D game or other role-playing games to do that same sort of thing. Make your info dump fun and interesting. Do it in a way that's going to keep the players engaged. Check TVs and movies. See how they do it. Good ones. You could also pick up some basic screenwriting books, like how to write a screenplay, how to write a good story that's going to be presented visually. Those types of things will help you as a DM be able to tell your story to your players. If you think of D&D as a visual medium, because we do call it, if you're not using a virtual tabletop or you're not playing at a table or whatever, you're not using a battle map or anything, that we do say it's a theater of the mind, and the theater always conveys to you something visual. When I think of theater, I think of people standing on a stage telling a story, singing songs, maybe if it's a musical. That's still visual, right? TV, movies, theater. It's theater of the mind. So D&D is a visual medium. Look to visual media to get ideas and things for how to present your information, because pages and pages of info dumps, they are boring, and I get you're excited about all the work you did and the wonderful story you came up with, because it's just amazing and you're in love with it. You want your players to be in love with it. But if you're just going to read off 5 pages of dense narrative and history and whatever, you're going to bore them and they're going to become disinterested. And even if they are paying attention, what are the chances they're going to remember everything? How many of them are actually going to be taking notes? So you can still give them all that information, but if you do it in a interesting and engaging way, they're going to remember more. Like my characters in that game, they remember Bartleby. They remember him flying around. They remember him telling them things. And if they can't remember exactly what he said, they know enough to ask questions. Wait, what was it? Didn't Bartleby say something about that big rock? What was that called? Dragon something or other? Yeah, it was called the Dragon Stone. Yeah, that was like something about the diverting a river or something. Yes, exactly. See, they'll remember bits and pieces, just enough that it will keep them engaged. It'll keep them asking questions if they're interested. That's my DM advice for you today. Make your info dumps interesting and fun by using tips and tricks that you would find from television, movies, and even theater. D&D is a visual medium, believe it or not. So let's treat it like a visual medium and tell our stories as if we're writing a TV show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all of that fun, yada yada fun stuff. And I will see you next time with more useless information that you probably already knew anyway. Bye-bye now.